We're working to connect a region of over 600 more bridges between our lands.
Hello and welcome to ASEAN in Focus. I'm Maricar Velasco.
Delivering to you the latest news in and around the ASEAN region, I'm Mariel Soriano.
On today's headlines, preparations were in high gear in the Philippines on Friday with Super Typhoon Mangkhut set to make a direct hit in less than 24 hours, packing winds up to 255 kilometers per hour and drenching rains.
Ambassador Sung Kim presented 13 Filipino World War II veterans with bronze replicas of the Congressional Gold Medal in the U.S. Embassy in the Philippines, making the first time the honor has been presented on Philippine soil.
The EU's diplomatic chief on Thursday condemned Myanmar's jailing of two Reuters journalists hours after the country's tarnished democracy icon Aung San Suu Kyi strongly defended the men's treatment.
And a fire department in northern Bangkok has not received a call for a fire since June, but for trapping a slithery foe, there is a 24-hour hotline.
Preparations were in high gear in the Philippines on Friday with Super Typhoon Mangkhut set to make a direct hit in less than 24 hours, packing winds up to 255 kilometers per hour and drenching rains. Thousands fled their homes on the Philippines' northern coastal tip ahead of the early Saturday landfall of what is expected to be the disaster-prone nation's fiercest storm yet this year. Businesses and residents on Luzon Island, which is home to millions, were boarding up windows and tying down roofs that could be sheared off by winds forecast to gust as high as 255 kilometers per hour. According to Michael Conag, a spokesman for local civil defense authorities, the rains will be strong and the winds are no joke. They may have a storm surge that could reach 4 stories high. This could also destroy houses, especially makeshift houses being the most common in coastal areas. Heavy rains and high winds were just starting to pound the far northeastern tip of Luzon on Friday. However, there have been no reports of major damage or flooding. Farmers in the region, which produces a significant portion of the Philippines' corn and rice, were rushing to bring in crops that could be destroyed by flooding. At least 4 million people are directly in Mangkhut's path, which is predicted to move on to China's heavily populated southern coast, including Hong Kong, this weekend.
Ten areas are now under signal number 3 as Typhoon Ompong approached the Isabela Cagayan area, where it is expected to make landfall on Saturday. According to the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration, or PAGASA, the 10 areas where Cagayan, including the Babuyan Group of Islands, Apayao, Abra, Kalinga, Mountain Province, Ifugao, Nueva Vizcaya, Quirino, and Northern Aurora. Signal number 2 is up over Batanes, Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, La Union, Benguet, Pangasinan, Tarlac, Nueva Ecija, Southern Aurora, and Northern Zambales. Those under signal number 1, on the other hand, are Southern Zambales, Pampanga, Bulacan, Bataan, Rizal, Metro Manila, Cavite, Batangas, Laguna, Quezon including Polillo Island, Northern Occidental Mindoro including Lubang Island, Northern Oriental Mindoro, Masbate, Marinduque, Camarines Norte, Camarines Sur, Catanduanes, Albay, Sorsogon, Burias and Ticao Islands, and Northern Samar. PAGASA said stormy weather is expected in areas where signal number 2 and number 3 are hoisted. Occasional rains with gusty winds are expected in areas under signal number 1.
Ambassador Sung Kim presented 13 Filipino World War II veterans with bronze replicas of the Congressional Gold Medal at the U.S. Embassy in the Philippines, marking the first time the honor has been presented on Philippine soil. Ambassador Sung Y. Kim at the ceremony said, as they remember those who defended Bataan, those who fought in Corregidor, and those who liberated Manila, they pause to reflect and honor their lives and legacies. What they have freely given is beyond their power to repay. They recognize their debt for the sacrifices with deep respect and profound appreciation. The Congressional Gold Medal is the U.S. Congress's highest civilian honor. In July 1941, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt called over 250,000 Filipinos into service with U.S. military units and guerrilla forces in the defense of the Philippines. Between July 1941 and December 1946, Philippine service members fought with the United States Armed Forces in the Far East and under the command of General Douglas MacArthur, Major General Jonathan Wainwright, and Major General Edward King. Many gave their lives in the defense of their homeland and in service to the United States. Colonel Paterno V. Viloria, a retired Philippine Army, says it is of great honor and pride to be bestowed the Congressional Gold Medal by the United States Congress. He is overjoyed that after more than 7 decades, Filipino veterans of World War II would fought side by side the United States Armed Forces are finally getting the honor and recognition they deserve for their bravery and heroism and their selfless sacrifice and dedicated service during the war.
There is no warrant of arrest for Senator Antonio Trillanes IV just yet. This was after the Makati Regional Trial Court Branch 150 instead gave the prosecution 5 days to reply to Trillanes' written comments and opposition to the prosecution's motion for alias warrant and whole departure order. Trillanes, who was charged with rebellion in the court, was also given 5 days to respond to the prosecution's reply. On Thursday, the Makati Regional Trial Court Branch 148, where Trillanes was charged with coup d'etat, also gave both parties time to file the respective pleadings before the DOJ's motion for alias warrant and whole departure order was deemed submitted for resolution. The DOJ's contention is that Trillanes still faces cases in connection with the Oakwood Mutiny and the Manila Peninsula Siege in 2003 and 2007 respectively, even if a dismissal order covering those cases had been issued by the courts. According to the DOJ, the dismissal, after all, was anchored on the amnesty granted to Trillanes. The amnesty, however, the DOJ argued, was declared void ab initio by Proclamation number 572. Trillanes has argued the cases against him have been already dismissed.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Bata Video Festival is calling for submission of video entries. The theme is Everyday Heroes. Winners will represent the Philippines. Deadline is on September 21. For details, visit or contact the following.
When visiting the Philippines, Manila or Quezon City is a popular destination. But oftentimes the hustle and bustle of the city can be more stressful on your vacation. So when you feel the need to reconnect to nature or relax again, there's a beautiful oasis just outside of the city called the Garden at Ciudad de Victoria. species that you can see here include hydrangea, snapdragon, and stargazers. They're truly beautiful. The gardens at Ciudad de Victoria are so peaceful, tranquil, and beautiful that it's become a haven for young couples and a very popular venue for engagement photos. The next time you want an escape from the big city, the garden at Ciudad de Victoria is a wonderful place to visit.
Former Malaysian leader Najib Razak's chief lawyer was arrested and charged with money laundering Thursday as authorities intensified a crackdown on corruption linked to the previous government. Shafi Abdullah, one of the country's most prominent lawyers, led Najib's legal team when the former prime minister was charged for his role in a multi-billion-dollar financial scandal involving state fund One Malaysia Development Berhad or 1MDB. Najib denies accusations that he oversaw the theft of billions of dollars, but the financial scandal was a key factor in his shock election defeat in May to a disparate opposition led by his former mentor Mahathir Mohamad. Shafi was slapped with 4 money laundering charges at the Sessions Court, where he pleaded not guilty and was released on bail. According to an officer of the Anti-Corruption Commission, he was arrested early Thursday at an airport where he was scheduled to board a domestic flight for a court case. He was accused of receiving into his bank accounts 2 checks from Najib totaling 9.5 million ringgit or $2.3 million, one deposited in 2013 and the other in 2014. Both checks were proceeds of unlawful activity according to the charge sheet. The charges also involve Shafi omitting the money in his income tax returns for those years. If convicted on all charges, he could face fines and up to 40 years in prison. State prosecutor Gopal Sri Ram also told reporters the charges arose from the Anti-Corruption Commission's investigation into the 1MDB scandal. Shafi called the charges part of a political vendetta, but the state prosecutor said it is a serious offense. There is no politics in this. The accused is not a politician. Mahathir's government has embarked on an anti-corruption campaign since taking power, running after several individuals linked to the former government. It has gained custody of a luxury yacht believed to be bought with stolen 1MDB funds by fugitive Malaysian financier Low-Tech Joe, who is at the center of the scandal. Mahathir also wants to take back a private jet belonging to Low, who has denied any wrongdoing. Following Najib's election loss, police seized a vast trove of items, including expensive handbags and jewelry, from properties linked to him with an estimated value of up to $273 million.
Are you feeling confident today, Tanzri?
The EU's diplomatic chief on Thursday condemned Myanmar's jailing of 2 Reuters journalists hours after the country's tarnished democracy icon Aung San Suu Kyi strongly defended the men's treatment. A court in Myanmar jailed Wal Lone and Kyaw Soe for 7 years last week for breaching the country's hardline Official Secrets Act while reporting on the Rohingya crisis. The trial was widely seen as a bid to muzzle the press and the reporter's harsh sentences have attracted a chorus of international criticism. EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini repeated a call for the reporter's immediate unconditional release, saying they had not had a fair trial. Mogherini told the European Parliament many observers saw this trial as a test of freedom of the media, democracy, and the rule of law in the country. It is pretty clear for him that the test has failed, adding the sentence will also intimidate other journalists who could fear undue arrest or prosecution for doing their jobs. The European Parliament also called for the reporters to be freed and urged the bloc's executive arm, the European Commission, to review trade privileges granted to Myanmar when it transitioned to democracy in 2015.
Asian markets extended their gains Friday on hopes for China-U.S. trade talks, while Turkey's lira held up after a shock hike in the country's interest rate and a dip in U.S. inflation. After a tumultuous start to the month, investors finally had something to smile about Thursday after Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin invited Chinese officials for fresh talks to avert an all-out trade war. The news provided some much-needed support, which was improved on later in the day with data showing U.S. consumer price inflation slid in August, easing pressure on the Federal Reserve to tighten borrowing costs. While the central bank is expected to lift rates next month, the figures lower the chances of another such move before January and provided a boost on equities on Wall Street. That, combined with a pickup in demand for stocks and currencies, sent the dollar southwards against most higher-yielding currencies, but up against the safe haven yen. It also gave some breathing space to emerging markets, which have been battered in recent weeks by fears of contagion from crises in Turkey, Argentina, and South Africa, as a stronger dollar makes it harder for them to repay debts. Hope springs eternal for emerging markets anytime the U.S. dollar weakens, and was no exception, said Stephen Ines, head of Asia-Pacific trading at Wanda. As indeed the stars aligned for emerging markets assets after an astonishing interest rate hike from the Central Bank of Turkey and an exceedingly soft U.S. inflation data. More news when ASEAN in Focus returns. Stay tuned.
I am Leo Aquino, EBC correspondent from Vancouver, Canada, and I am standing here in front of the Olympic Cauldron located in downtown Vancouver. Did you know that the 2010 Winter Olympic was hosted in Vancouver? Make sure to tune in to Digitalness every Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. I am Leo Aquino, and I am 1 for 25.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced, eagle news, because we live in interesting times.
Welcome back. Japan and Vietnam on Thursday urged the United States to rejoin a sprawling Pacific trade deal almost 2 years after President Donald Trump's withdrawal dealt a major blow to what would have been the world's largest free trade pact. Trump pulled out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal in one of his first post-election moves as part of his America's First clarion call, declaring the 12-nation trade pact a, quote, job killer. The 11 remaining countries have pledged to move ahead with the deal, which could go into effect by the end of this year, although in a significantly watered-down version without the U.S. They have kept a door open for Washington's return and have also not ruled out allowing other non-Pacific countries to join the deal. Japan's foreign minister on Thursday encouraged the U.S. to come back to the pact, speaking at a regional World Economic Forum where concerns over trade protectionism have dominated discussions. Japan and Vietnam's comments come after Trump said in April the U.S. could re-enter the agreement if it was, quote, a better deal. Leaders at this year's regional WEF summit for the Association of Southeast Asian Nations have railed against protectionism and called for breaking down trade barriers.
A fire department in northern Bangkok has not received a call for a fire since June. But for trapping a slithery foe, there is a 24-hour hotline. Surapong Swepchai, a 46-year-old firefighter working in the Thai capital's Lat Yau district. The work, catching snakes, is quite a lot. Snakes are a common sight in Bangkok, a bustling city built on once swampy land, and it is not unusual to see them slithering across public spaces like parks, water canals, and schools. But residents might also encounter them in their homes, especially if they have rats. The calls to Surapong's fire department increase during the rainy season after new hatchlings are born. If venomous snakes are caught during their calls, they are brought to the Bangkok Snake Farm near the center of the city. As for harmless snakes, Surapong said he tries to explain to people that it's good to have them around to keep a balanced ecosystem. He says killing all the snakes will mean rats will come and bring diseases, adding that these are brought to a nearby university park to be released. The assuage and fear of locals, the fire department conducts training sessions for anyone who wants to learn how to handle serpents terrorizing their homes. According to 2016 figures from the Health Ministry, more than 1,700 people in Thailand have been bitten by snakes, though fortunately none have died. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. I'm Mariel Soriano.
Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Maricar Velasco. And we are one with 25.